Hey guys, my name is Loveless, and this time we're here with a high pitched cry for help. So let's get straight into it. For a safe and fun trip, one has to be prepared. But, well, this was no trip at all. After all, when you're going on a trip, you have a final destination. Izuku didn't know where to go. He heard it everywhere. Not having a home was hard. But going to jail would be worse, right? So Izuku did the only thing he could think of. He started packing. He really wanted to have one heck of a day before leaving the house for good. He filled the only bag he had, a bright yellow one that his mother gave him when she still loved him. It was all muddy. He did the best he could to patch it up with glue, but it was still small holes to the side. He grabbed a family photo, his hero notebooks, his color pencils, and all the hero merch that he could fit in it. Most of it was clothes anyway, so that would come in handy. Not that he was really thinking practically, because, well, he was only 6. Leaving the bag near the entrance, he cleaned his face as well as he could with an old rag and went on his way. His first visit was Nima, hopefully eating something and helping her however he could. And he did. The old woman's eyes spilled over a tear or two when he saw him. She was always so kind and motherly. Didn't ask any questions and let him write down anything that he wanted to say, even going as far as teaching him some new words and showing him some of her favorite card games. He really hoped he would be able to visit her. Izuku was way too young to understand, but she tried looking out for him, accidentally spilling tea on his shirt and offering to wash it for him, asking him to wash his hands when it got sticky from the cookies, secretly putting some band-aids in his pockets after cuts in his hands and fingers, asking him to let her brush his hair. That were all that he put a line at. Only his mama brushed his hair. Even if she didn't do it anymore, he wasn't going to let anyone touch it, nor him either, to be real. Nima wanted so bad to ask Suzuku for so much more, but was happy enough knowing that he promised to come back for more snacks. His next stop was a food stop, but he decided he wanted to put the fruit and cereal bars Nima gave him in his bag first. They were so good, but he had eaten already, and his stomach could only handle so much, anyways. As soon as he stepped foot in his apartment complex, he could feel it in his bones that something was wrong. That should have been a clue for him to leave. But he walked up the stairs to his apartment anyway. The door was wide, which made him swallow hard. The noise of things being shoved and pushed around coming from inside the house. Thieves? No, they wouldn't be so obvious. He remembered what happened last time when he found the door opened. He wished he was wrong. He wasn't. The noise came from his parents' room, so without questioning, he tried grabbing his bag, but the sound of things moving around stopped as he did. Hazashi was there. He looked so much older than Izuku remembered. The unclean shave and messy hair made him look 10 years older. They stared at each other, both stunned, one angry and one scared. Do not tell me that! He failed to finish his own words, instead watching his son tremble on his feet. The man spun around quickly and walked to the bathroom. More noise. He immediately recognized what he had in between his hands and regretted so much for not leaving when he had the chance. Feeling overpowered was the feeling that he remembered. Hazashi grabbed him by his arm and pulled hard, almost lifting him in the air. He felt as if he grew a tongue, but there was no way of staying calm. It was way stronger than his dreams and a lot angrier too. I'm not risking it again. It was the first time he actually tried to fight him off. He agitated his hands in front of his face. His head hanging low to avoid showing his face and mouth, but soon the hand left his arm and got a handful of air, forcing him to lift his eyes to his level. Dirty little rat. It was barely a murmur, but he heard it. A distinct clink of metal was all that he could hear before the muzzle. He knew the device was still in the house. That's why he never used the main bathroom, too scared to share the same space with it. Ezekiel started crying silently, defeated, setting it as he pulled the leather scrap, a metallic taste filling his mouth, and his cheek stung the harder he pulled. He couldn't avoid it. He was desperate, angry at himself. He wanted his father to give back every one of his tears he cried. He wanted him to put on the torture device and see what it was like. Pure humiliation followed him as he was dragged to the front door. Breathing was heavy, and his sobs were so painful. He trained so hard not to use it anymore. But he could put in effort to be good. He knew at that moment he hated his father. He allowed himself to do so. He was a villain. A hero would recognize his efforts. They would. Eraserhead put stickers when his drawings were more detailed. He understood. Go. He pushed open the door, landing ass first. You don't live here. Go fucking away already. His bag was thrown at him. The things scattered everywhere down the complex stairs. Sobbing and shaking like a leaf, he stood up, only to be kicked down the stairs. The tall man stood on top of them, huffing with his plastic bag full of things. How could you even still come here after everything? By now he was yelling, coming down the stairs and not even giving a second look. God damn it, no wonder no one wanted to rent this rat hole. The man continued talking to himself, blurting insults left and right as he walked away. Got in the once family car and drove away. He stayed there once because his tummy hurt so bad, and then he was crying and he didn't see properly. It took a few minutes of shaking, but eventually his mind went on autopilot. His body erased the pain and he felt himself go numb. It didn't happen often, but when it did, he was never clearly remembering the time in between naps. It happened once or twice at school, but his teacher dismissed it as not paying attention. He agreed upon. He wouldn't have argued, but the symptoms were signs of the curse, right? Piece by piece, all of them mechanically retrieved into his backpack once again. Step by step, it felt like he was kind of asleep, or just in a body that wasn't his. He could tell, but he walked straight to the dumpster, probably because that was where he was going to go next, and sat there, not even realizing he was still crying. How long has he been there? Aizawa wasn't supposed to be on call that night. He was called to cover a shift in a more mellow part of the city, and well, they called him because he was always known to take more than he should. It was on his way home when he received a text from Nomasa. It was short and concise and put a sour half smile on his face. We have enough to start to get him out. On one hand, just the idea it took barely a few days to find enough evidence of neglect made him angry. On the other hand, he was just happy to finally be able to take the kid out of that place. It was one of those cases he wanted to see from the beginning to end. If possible, he would try to speak to whoever takes him in, whether it was another relative or a foster family. However, there was something that just didn't feel right. Aizawa knew it for sure that Nomasta was good at his job, but at the same time he knew that if this kid could detect him, he was most definitely aware of the detective's presence. The mental image, the greenie being paranoid about being followed, felt like swallowing rocks. He didn't want to think of him being scared outside of his house when he probably didn't feel safe in it. If the case was clear to start, there was no wrong in him checking for himself for the state the little one was in, right? It's just to give some peace of mind. On his way there, he could not stop his heart from racing. His gut feeling spiked as he got closer by the second, and there was nothing in there to reassure him. The place was completely trashed inside out, as if a tornado entered the apartment alone. The number of papers, clothes, and random things made a path from downstairs to the main hall. The door was open wide. He could see it from the rooftop of the building next door. Aizawa tried to keep his cool. He recognized it as a crime scene or a fight scene of some sort. He sent a quick text to Azashi with his location, so not to alert the detective that was most probably off duty by now. Capture weapon in hand and ready in case of a possible altercation. It was the first, or maybe last, time he got to see the place from the inside. It was disgusting. Things were all over the place. Nauseating smell of rotten food and dirt buildup. The ceiling definitely had some fungus, and the floor was sticky and splattered with beans? The lights didn't work either. Had he been living in these conditions? It didn't take long to clear the house. There was no one there, and no signs of the kid anywhere. One room, clearly at some point, the kid, he could avoid taking extra steps as he recognized the kid in the picture. He looks like a normal kid, but much smaller. What the hell happened? His hand started to tingle at the realization that something could have happened to the kid. The feeling built, climbing his throat almost unbearably at the sight of one single drop of deep red liquid outside the door, and then another, and another. He paced around in hopes of seeing someone else, but after maybe 6 or 7 drops, there was nothing else. There was a sparse and far in between, which was good at least. There was no profuse bleeding. But nonetheless, he became extremely worried. His kid was out there, alone, maybe hurt, at 4 in the morning. The drops indicated a way that was in an open space. Not having no way to narrow it down, Aizawa became frustrated with himself. There has to be There was something. He knew the kid. If there was someone out there qualified to find him, it was him. His phone buzzed, but he ignored it. He went to the kid's favorite place, the rooftop of the building. Nothing. The jelly pouch was still there. It felt like a punch in the stomach. The hiding spot where he watched him next. Nothing. Pacing around, the black-haired hero didn't want to admit that he was having an anxiety attack at the moment now. There was no time for that. He had to calm his breathing. It was getting out of hand, getting louder by the minute, getting louder and louder and except it wasn't his breathing. The familiar feeling he detected the night the kid opened the door, like the air was dense and silent, except now it was dense and loud. It had to be him. It had to be. Without recognizing his movements, he activated his quirk. Useless as he could not see the kid yet, his heart was still in his mouth, trying to jump out of his eyes, so it got so dry it was itchy. Curled up next to a huge yellow cloth was a big chunk of hair that he knew was him. Aizawa let the air that he didn't know that he was holding go. The air echoed even though the space was open. He activated his quirk. The kid didn't move in the slightest, but the air seemed to be quiet again. Kid? Shota did his best to keep his voice steady and calm to transmit to him. He was almost positive the kid was mute and not deaf, but there was the doubt of him being neither or both. He didn't react. Stepping closer, but slowly, he crouched down to be at his height, keeping a safe distance so not to freak him out. He didn't see any immediate injuries, but he can also barely see anything with the lack of streetlights because of him hiding his face in between his knees. He tapped the floor next to him twice, as he did to get his husband's attention when he's not wearing his hearing aids. Also nothing. He blinked. The air stayed normal this time. He prayed to some unknown God that this kid wouldn't be unconscious, or worse. Gaining courage and losing some of his years of life, he decided to tap his shoulder, just enough to let him lift his head. Nothing. That was the cue to get serious. He got closer and without an ounce of force put both of his hands on the kid's shoulder. When he failed to react again, he made his way to pull his face forward and to check him out. And then he felt the muzzle. A device he knew by heart and hated with all his might. The kid was wearing a fucking muzzle. The strap lost between his curls. This one was rusty and deeply pushed into the kid's cheeks. Some red was already visible, and he could see the damage would be much worse once it was taken off. And he was awake. Wide awake, he had to add. Just not fully there. His eyes were red and puffy, but most of all, a heavy gloss over. Kid, can you hear me? His eyes didn't move. He just blinked slowly. And God, did his chest ache at the sight. With one agile hand, he took his phone and called his husband. The phone trapped in between his shoulder and ear to use both his hands, trying to figure out how to get him out of the leather and metal lock. At the second ring, he picked up. Sho, what the hell? I'm so worried over here. Why did you... I have the kid. He's completely dissociated, and I mean gone. He swallowed hard. Zashi, I know this is hard, but he has a muzzle on, and I need your help. If you don't want to see it, I'm 3 minutes away. Is he hurt? His voice turned serious, and God, if it wasn't for the best. I think so. He couldn't stop his voice from trembling. He just couldn't get the damn thing off. Okay, stay with him. I'm bringing the car and calling Tsukachi. And the line went dead. As he waited for his husband, he tried to make a quick check for other wounds. He decided to let the muzzle alone, as to not pull on it and risk more damage. But in the state the kid didn't react to all of his touches, he finally picked him up. He decided to let the muzzle alone, to not pull on it or risk more damage. But in the state the kid didn't react to his touch at all, and finally picked him up. He was so light and small. He was making a conscious effort not to move so much, fearing hurting him further. At 3-minute mark, Hazashi pulled up to a car, very illegally on the sidewalk, slamming the door open and running towards them. He tried to hide the flinch at the sight of the muzzle, and just opened the passenger door for them. At Aizawa's signal, he also took the yellow backpack and put it in the back seat. Once in, Hazashi drove straight to the hospital, no questions asked, where Aizawa couldn't help but notice that at some point the kid grabbed the end of his scarf as if his life depended on it. It was going to be a long, painful night. Yay, we did it! We did it all in one go in just 30 minutes. But that was because of noises outside my apartment building. So if you hear any noises in between, I'm going to try to cut that out as much as possible, but I was trying to just push through with even the span of the noises that the kids were making. But I tried my very best with that. I could do my editing. I just do not want to have to record this again. So I'm going to just have to edit it out. Like that noise. If you could hear it, I think you can. But yeah, so... this one's going to be a little bit rough at the end. It's already getting rough, but Aizawa finally has the kid, so yay! I'm very happy about that. And then the kid can actually get some fucking help. But yeah, we're going to go from there. Yeah. I'll be posting more pretty soon. If you want to see more of this, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Those things.